What if some people are just handed far more suffering than others, and it's nowhere close to being fair? Think about the unseen forces steering things, like you're in the wrong place at the wrong time. Then one moment completely wrecks everything. Or that one chance encounter that changes the course of your life in ways you never wanted. Or have you ever seen someone going through a bad season that just won't pass? Those moments where things go wrong out of nowhere and it hits you hard. And then there are people where things just work in their favor all the time. So is life rigged against certain people? To even answer that, how do you measure the weight of suffering on someone's life? As in who suffers more and why? Thinking about this made me realize there are two truths about suffering that feel like oil and water, but somehow they exist together. The first is we can't compare pain, because the same kind of suffering can hit people in completely different ways. Heartbreaks, loss, failures, the same kind of pain lands differently for everyone. But at the same time, another truth exists, that there are levels to pain. Like a spoiled person having to take on responsibility might feel like their world's collapsing, but that pain is nowhere near the same depth as someone going through grief and loss. So some pain is deeper than others. Let me show you what I mean with one of the most layered stories of suffering ever told, the crucifixion of Jesus. The first layer of his suffering is raw physical torture. Being nailed to a cross and left to die slowly for hours is on a completely different level than, say, a quick death. Another layer is injustice. He was 100% innocent, yet condemned to cruelty anyway. Then there's betrayal. The very person he called friend betrayed him for money. Then there's abandonment, because the people closest to him abandoned him during his trials. And there's also total isolation. He went through the worst pain imaginable completely alone. This is just scratching the surface. It goes so much deeper. And because so many kinds of suffering were stacked together, Jesus' pain was heavier and deeper than most. So in society, we mostly hear one side of truth, which is you can't compare pain. But that's only half true. Because in reality, there are levels to suffering. And to deny that is to ignore the weight of what some people go through. To be clear, this isn't about keeping score. This isn't about saying woe is me. It's about recognizing the depth and weight of pain. So to answer the question, is suffering unequal? Heck yeah! Is life rigged against some people? In some aspects, yes. The dice do roll unfairly for some, but that's not the end of the story. People who go through something extremely deep have access to something others don't. So next are the three things only deep suffering can give. Things some people would never have access to. The first is freedom from comforting illusions. Going through deep suffering breaks your illusions of life. A lot of people go through life holding on to comforting beliefs that life is fair, that hard work guarantees outcomes, that good people are rewarded. But when you go through something deep enough, those beliefs don't survive. Where we place them is a deeper understanding of life. That sometimes life isn't fair and goodness isn't always rewarded. So in my early 20s, I found success pretty early, and it was through hard work and by doing right by people. But as I moved into my 30s, I started failing hard, and the more I worked, the bigger the failures got. And in those moments of pain, I'm forced to see reality for what it is. That the market doesn't care if I'm a good person or not, and it doesn't always reward effort. So I stripped away all emotions and started approaching things pragmatically. And that's when the results came again. And it's all because suffering has stripped away all comforting illusions I had about life. So that's the first thing suffering gives you, a deeper wisdom on how the world actually works. The second is suffering expands your emotional range. Not in a surface level way, but you'd have a sharper awareness of what someone is actually carrying. When you've gone through loss, betrayal, deep pain, you don't just understand suffering in theory. You see that same storm in someone right away. You notice things people miss. And when you speak, your words carry weight. Because deep calls out to deep. Meaning, the deepest part of you will only be moved by something equally deep. So in 2023, I lost my dog, and it was the most painful thing I've ever gone through. The people around me saw what happened, but they couldn't understand why it was breaking me apart, because it got so bad to the point where I didn't want to be here. And that's when I knew I needed help. So I reached out to mentors, pastors, therapists, people I looked up to. And out of almost 10 people, only 2 could help me. And the 2 were the ones who have gone through the depths. One of them came close to losing his child. He waited at bedside for weeks, not knowing if his son was gonna make it or not. And every word he spoke carried so much weight, it pulled me out of the pit. Because deep calls out to deep, and depth recognizes depth. And when you've gone through deep suffering, you develop an emotional range others don't have. And the third thing suffering gives you is deep creative power. People who've gone through deep pain can turn it into something extremely meaningful that reaches people at a soul level. J.R.R. Tolkien fought in World War I. He lost close friends and witnessed the brutality of trench warfare. Those experiences shaped parts of Middle-earth, like the Dead Marches and the Wasteland of Mordor. J.K. Rowling fought clinical depression, so she knew firsthand what it feels like for all hope and joy to be sucked away. That experience became basis for the Dementors, creatures that sucked all hope and joy right out of the air. On a personal note, when I lost my dog and was at the lowest point of my life, one of the things that brought me back was watching the K-drama Alchemy of Souls. The way the characters carried their suffering and found meaning gave me hope. It reminded me that pain can be turned into something beautiful. And that's the harness power of deep suffering. No one wants to go through this. No one chooses this path. But sometimes, life chooses it for us. And if you're someone who's been put on this path, my prayer is that you find hope and meaning in the midst of your pain. My name is Han. Thank you for spending your time here, and I'll see you in the next one.